Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our hybrid Heritage Wilmot meetings. Welcome also to those tuning in online, either live or viewing afterwards. I'd like to start off with a territorial acknowledgement. We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. Next item, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Any members have any pecuniary interest to disclose? Seeing none. Next, we'll move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Any comments, questions, omissions, additions? If not, could I have a motion to approve? Al, second Yvonne. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to new business. First item under there was Heritage Day. Event recap. I think it was a great event. We had a really good turnout, I thought, and I thought the speakers were very engaging and interesting topic. Any comments from the floor or township staff? Sherry.
Yeah, I got some feedback, and everyone who approached me really enjoyed it and thought it was a very good educational, very good education for everyone. And I thought it was really well attended, and thought it went really well.
Sure.
I had asked the exhibitors for some feedback as well, and I did have many, many positive comments. They really enjoyed the lecture component, but some of the exhibitors wanted to go back to the original format of a Saturday and to make it a little bit longer so that it makes it worth their while to come out. And they also wanted to have more of a variety, so it wasn't just organizers, that maybe that there were collections of different things that people collect throughout the township. So that might be something that we want to keep in mind for next year.
That's a good idea. So maybe when we're thinking of a theme, something that we could have, something from the collections that would be part of that, or something again where people bring something. I know we've done that before too. Anyone else? Great. Well, look forward to planning our next event. I think, yeah, it would be nice if we could do the kind of longer daytime event. I know we talked about that as well. So if we have lots of time to organize, I think we should try and do that. Excellent. I just put it on there for a quick recap. Al?
I think most people that were there understood the reason why we did what we did, considering that we'd been shut down for so long. But I didn't do any formal thing, but I got the hint from a few comments that echoed what Sherry said. And I was quite pleasantly surprised that we had as many exhibitors that we did, considering it was just a 3-hour event. So it says a lot to the dedication of the people that came and the organizations that they represent.
Yeah, it was a good way to ease back into it. Yvonne?
How many exhibitors did we actually end up having then?
We had 6.
Cool. And it was pretty full in the room downstairs anyway. So what we do next year, maybe we'd look at a community center, or if we can spread out, I don't know. Great. Anything else? Al?
I know people, I don't want to get way ahead of ourselves, but they really like coming to the New Dundee Community Center, and I was mentioned by a few people. Can we go back to where we were before? And actually, a friend of mine last night who didn't come said, yeah, you guys got to go back to the New Dundee Community Center with this event. So, food for thought.
That is a very good venue, and I know we've used it lots in the past. I think it's worked out pretty well. Patty?
I had quite a few comments too, and especially people would like to go back to New Dundee. So, but positive comments from people. People enjoyed it and thought with what we had, it was a good event, but they were missing the longer one and the one at New Dundee, which worked well.
Okay, well, that's good feedback. Cameron?
Yeah, from a staff perspective, certainly the event was a big success. The room was packed here. We also had Mayor Solomon reach out to the speakers, and they were very grateful for great turnout and the support from the committee as well and everything. So just echo a lot of the comments. I thought this event was a relative success for sure. Excellent.
Thanks, Cameron. All right, well, we'll have to start brainstorming for events for next year and start planning. And it always takes longer than we think to put it together, so that'll be a task for the new committee. Next item I had was non-designated register. Any action? I understand township staff, you guys have been discussing on kind of ways to move forward. And Sherry has news?
Yes. We actually are thrilled to have a heritage student that will be starting next week. We have them for the full 16 weeks. So we've got quite a number of projects under the Heritage Wilmot title. So one is going to be updating the photos for the designated list, and then potentially for an inventory as well. So I know, Marg, in the past that you've assisted those students in going around and pointing out buildings and architecture, which they've always really appreciated. So when the new committee is formed, I hope that we could maybe get a subcommittee together to help the student as well, and give her some guidance on where to go. We'd also like her to create a survey that will sort of be the top 10 of what the committee's choice is for items that are on the non-designated list that we can see moving forward with a designation. So at least maybe to get 1 or 2 done by the end of the year. And I know that's a big ask, but I think it's something that we can work on, and with the students' help as well, we can get a lot of the research and such ready. And then also the next steps after that of her putting together a flow chart of what the process and the steps will be so that we can reach that goal by the end of the year.
Excellent. That's very exciting. So there are new students starting next week, so then I guess when the new committee is formed, then we can kind of work on a game plan for that. Awesome. Any comments? Thoughts? Yvonne?
I just have a question. Marg and I, it would have been early last fall. We were in the middle of touring just outside the Heritage District in New Hamburg. And so we had done some work, and we had and I provided the photographs and sent them in. Do we know what the status is of the information that we like the stuff that we did and sent? Do we know what happened to it, or the status, or anything?
That I can check in with Harold Okrafka to see if he has been given that information, but I don't have it in anything that I reference.
I know, Yvonne, there was a whole bunch of photos that were shared back in the fall, and I had a link to that folder on the Google Drive. So
Yeah, those would be the ones that I sent in.
So we have that.
Okay, because normally what would have happened is they would have been added to the list that would have been presented to council in the fall, and that didn't happen. So we didn't actually hear what happened after we sent the material in. Right? So we just want to make sure that that work didn't get lost somehow, or that we can pick up where we left off, because I think it's really important. I think Marg would agree that it's important to continue what we started, finish what we started.
Absolutely. Thanks, Yvonne. Cameron, you look like you're going to say something.
I was just going to echo Sherry's comments. We'll follow up with Harold Okrafka on that, but I do know that a lot of information, both in physical and digital form, was essentially placed with him. So we'll circle back and see if any of that certainly is within there. Obviously, ideally, it would be best to build off some of that existing work that the members of the committee have done. So ideally, some of that information would be retained, but certainly we'll follow up on that.
Excellent, thanks. Okay, I don't think there is anything else under register. Moving on then to business. Just have the mill redevelopment update. I just started a new subheading for New Hamburg HCD, so that if we have HCD stuff, we can kind of all put it together. So we'll see if that works and carry forward. So really, since the last meeting, we had the letter that we put together based on the comments and presentation, and thanks everyone for the comments. That was great. So had it finalized and sent off to Andrew, and it understands gone to the applicants now. So they'll take our feedback and then work on their revisions to their plans, their final selections and things like that, and then come back for final comments from the committee. What else did I jot down? I think that was it. We just look forward to seeing any final designs at the permit stage. And then I know with the former police station, maybe there's an interest in taking photos to document it so that we have a record of it for archive purposes or files. So whenever that time comes, I think that's something we'd definitely be interested in doing, just so we have a record of it.
Yeah, as with any property in the Heritage Conservation District, there'll be a notification protocol that's followed, and as with any demolition permit, so certainly we provide notification of that, and we can decide next steps, whether that's photographing the site or alternate forms of media that we can preserve it digitally and try and record that piece of history. So.
Excellent. Yvonne.
You have to clarify for me, hopefully, where this particular building is sort of in the process, as in, does this particular building have heritage value on its own? Because it's part of this redevelopment. But I believe at the last meeting, it was mentioned that it was planned to be demolished. We haven't seen, right, because, I mean, if they applied to demolish it, then it would come through us first. But I think as a committee, like the city of Kitchener is designating the A.R. Gowdy as the property now. So it was on the, what was it? It was originally the home of Refuge? House of Refuge? House of Refuge?
Refuge and Industry.
Yeah, okay. So that was the site.
Yeah.
However, the building that is being designated is 30 years old. So that's an example of some of the things that are happening. And I'm wondering as a committee whether, should we be discussing whether this building has heritage value on its own, and maybe we don't want it to be demolished. Maybe it's something that can be worked into the overall plan and be used. I mean, if it's in half-decent shape, maybe it can be used as a community center or gathering space without demolishing the building if we consider it valuable in some way. I mean, it's not, I don't know, where do we go with this?
I know in the district, I think it's listed as unrelated to the Heritage District in terms of the architecture. So I don't know if it's something we'd considered might have heritage value till now. So that was my thinking about documenting it perhaps. But nothing's happened down on the site, so I think that's something we can look at the building, I guess, in more detail at least, and see what might be there. Al?
Well, I've kind of thought about this a bit more. It does have an interesting design, and there is a movement to, in the region, in different municipalities, to just not forget about it. It's a totally different era than everything else that's in the Heritage Conservation District, but of all the modern buildings, it is the best architectural piece, in my opinion. And then you have to sort of look beyond the building that's there as well. And Yvonne kind of twigged this to me when she, pointed out to me a week or so ago that the A.R. Gowdy building has a historical interest through the House of Refuge. Where the former police station is, that was built as was the home of the Hamburg Public Utilities Commission, which existed prior to regional government. And it was built, but prior to that, there was a power generating station there, or facility there, that generated power for the whole community before we switched to the hydroelectric grid in 1910. So there's an interesting history to that piece of property other than the building that's on it. So I think, we just shouldn't just dismiss it outright, although we don't want to jeopardize the entire project because it is an interesting project. But if it can somehow be incorporated, that might be something worth discussing before we get any further along the line. Yeah.
Anyone else? Patty?
So I missed the last meeting, so I really wasn't, I missed the whole presentation. So why is it being torn down, or why is the plan to take it down, Andrew, do you?
Some of the preliminary design concepts show it being used for part of the addition to the existing building, so certainly for space constraints on the existing site. That was part of why they sought to acquire that site, was to accommodate it in its design, both to add the addition, but also so that parking can be secured on the alternative site. Just in terms of design, that's how it has always been considered, to kind of use that former police detachment building. So that's the short answer in terms of why it's part of the design.
Okay, thanks.
And I think the rendering that was shown last time, the whole addition to the building went across to the property where the police station's sitting now. But there's certainly an opportunity, I think, for the committee to provide input. Definitely worth looking at the building for sure to document it. And then if we can take a look at it, then we can do maybe a full assessment on it. I don't know, Cameron, what timing you think for the property owner to come forward with, I guess, revised plans? Do you know?
I don't have a firm answer on that. It would be largely to do with them on their side in terms of preparing some things. I know obviously they've provided some preliminary concepts for feedback, so certainly if things have changed in terms of committee's support for parts or whole of the project, then obviously that would need to be communicated. As Nick did touch on, does form kind of the unrelated architecture, certainly being type C as opposed to a type A, or where it's most important historically versus perhaps a type B as well. So certainly we have to view that building slightly separately than we would view, again, a type A or type B building within the New Hamburg Conservation District. So, as Nick touched on, we would look at measures to ensure that we're preserving it in a digital form so that we can look back on the history, but certainly several redevelopment concepts for the site show that building is proposed to be taken down unless otherwise discussed or proposed, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. Any other thoughts? Just wondering then where we go from here as committee. I think probably the first step, Cameron, would be to arrange to have a look at the building and take photos, and then maybe that leads into taking a look at the potential heritage value. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, in the letter dated May the 3rd, the committee provided some, their support for the redevelopment project as a whole. So certainly, yeah, exploring other opportunities to document the site is something that we could explore as terms of the next step. But yeah, that's something we could certainly look into.
Is there interest across the board in looking at the police building in more detail? Yeah? Yvonne?
We won't know unless we actually have a look.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay. We'll start there and see where it goes. Any other final thoughts on that? All right. Next item was correspondence. I did not have anything under there. Township staff, anything to share under that? No? Anyone else?
I guess just regarding the new committee, some correspondence was sent out earlier today about new appointments, and obviously staff are looking forward to working with the new committee, and I know Nick's going to touch on that a little bit later, so perhaps I won't say much more.
I think we're at that later because we're at roundtable and info sharing. I just had an item under here for the next term. I didn't know that we'd know what the committee appointments would be, so I was going to thank everyone for being on the committee, and it's been great working with everyone the last number of years, and glad we're all going to be part of the committee again with expanded people with the castle focus as well, so I look forward to that. So look forward to working with the new committee, and thanks everyone.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed working with everyone, and I always learn something in this committee, which is one of the things that I really like about it. And I like that we're supporting heritage because we have to respect our past to move into the future. I'd also really like to express my appreciation for Tracy Locke and her hard work and contributions to this committee over the years. We would not be where we are now without Tracy, and it's a very sincere thank you to Tracy from me.
I fully agree. Thanks, Yvonne. Patty?
And me as well, and thanks, Yvonne, yeah.
Al?
Well said, Yvonne. But I also want to take this opportunity to thank you, Nick. Your leadership has been, it's been 8 years at least. But of all the years that I've been on this committee, we have a professional as our committee chair. And it makes it so much easier in terms of commenting especially on the Heritage District with all the development and restoration that's occurred there in the past 8 years. And so your experience and your willingness to serve on this committee and head this committee is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you. I'll say it on behalf of everybody, but myself in particular for your work that you put in.
Thanks very much, Al. I enjoy being on the committee, so appreciate that. Any other info sharing roundtable? You head into the cottage?
I will miss the inaugural meeting.
I guess to be determined when that will be. Township staff, I guess you'll reach out to all the new members and we'll figure out a date that works. Okay. Suffice to say, probably there'll be a meeting in June before summer months kick in. Okay. Excellent. Then we'll leave the next meeting date to be determined. And that wraps it up. Motion to adjourn. Al? All right.